Counselling interview. So communication is quite important in counselling, as you would know. If we can't communicate, we can't counsel. But there's a lot of stuff happening in our communication process. There's a lot of, part of our micro skills focus a lot on communication, your open questions, closed questions. Body language plays a huge role. Especially when you sit with a client and their body language show to you very clearly, I don't want to be here. Or you're annoying me, or you're irritating me, or especially couples counselling, you easily can see who is in this counselling and who's not by you look at the body language. So we're going to focus a bit more on the counselling process with communication and your interview. So it's nice and big now for you. It's now nice and small again. There we go. Components of communication is we have the participants. So in the counselling room, it will be you, the counsellor, and your client or clients. If you are into family counselling or couples counselling, you'll have more than one person in front of you. Meanings and symbols, decoding, encoding. Encoding is the cognitive process that transforms ideas and feelings into words, sounds, actions, and send and message. Decoding, the process of transforming the message received from another back into the receiver's own ideas and feelings. So that's sort of where a lot of issues happen with the encoding and decoding part, especially between husband and wife. He says one thing, she thinks he said something else. She said something like, honey, does this make me look fat? He wants to say, no, it doesn't. But all he knows is, you're going to be in trouble. The answer to this is, you're going to be in trouble. Because no matter what you say or at what tone you say it, will be taken wrong and you are in trouble. So I'm talking about the encoding, decoding process. So whatever we do, be aware of what's happening in front of you. Also, that's why we do stuff like reflective process or counseling, where we summarize things to make sure that we're on the right track, especially because of this encoding, decoding, because the client might think you want to talk, the client want to talk about something, you pick up something else, you're focusing on this, your client's focusing on that. In the end, you counsel, each one have their own counseling session in the room at the same time, because he wants to talk about this, and the counsellors think we're talking about this. So that's why it must be important that that's why we summarize, and we reflect on the process. How's this working for you? What's happening for you? That sort of stuff. So to make sure that there's no confusion in where we are in the process and what we're focusing on in this process. Okay, so encoding, decoding, just focus a lot on how we communicate. Also, body language. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can be saying about even encoding, decoding. It's like, sure, I'll go, but it'll say in such a way that you realize that he doesn't really want to go, or he's not actually going to go. Especially with our children. Will you do the dishes? Yes. The next morning you wake up, the dishes are still not done. His body language, the way he spoke to you, he basically said, you know I'm not going to do it. But his words were yes. So there's stuff that you need to know. It's like if my son says to me yes in a certain way, I know that's never going to happen. So that's the encoding, decoding part. Context, the setting into which communication takes place, the context, the setting, the environmental conditions, temperature, lighting, noise level. Where I counsel at the moment, we are busy building. So my counselling room is all over the show. We have next to the stage in the church, we've got a place called the green room. That's where special guests and whatever wait, and for one Sunday I was asked to use the green room, which sounds perfectly. The only issue with the green room is that if there's band practice, I cannot hear my client, and my client cannot hear me. So we were sitting there looking at each other and saying, let's find another spot. The environment is not good. So your counseling environment needs to be great for your client to actually connect with you. If it's too hot, uncomfortable, it's not cool. If the light is not well, if it's too dark, you both might fall asleep. Whatever, there might be issues. Okay, so just make sure you have proper lighting. The social context, what and how messages are formed, shared and understood. So how we form our messages, how we understand stuff, that's where culture plays a role. The culture that you come from. South African culture is quite different from Australian culture. Chinese culture is different. And then also the culture of my house is different from the culture of the neighbor's house. Everything is, so you need to make sure that you look at what's happening in your social context, what's the way people react, the way they talk. That's when you do the family thing. You talk about the hierarchy in the family and the structure in the family and the organization in the family. Those things come into play in your counseling room. The historical context, the background of previous communications and experiences between the participant will influence messages received in the current situation. So one of the questions is, and one of the assessments is, what is the historical context between the persons? So that's basically historical context is what happened in the past. How was communication? What sort of communication happened there in the past, and how is that being received now? So a lot of couples have a lot of historical context. They come and say that he said that, she said that. When did they say that? 10 years ago. That sort of stuff. Historical context. So what happened in the past? What have you said in the past? How was your communication in the past? So that's part of the process that you're working with. The physical, the social, the historical. So those are the three areas that's very active in your counseling room. Peter Janetsky, actually, it's interesting. He says that there's a lot of voices in the counseling room. There's a lot of communication happening without even communication happening, because each person has the voices of their past, the voices of what someone has said to them, their own voices, their own feelings. All these things are happening in your room. So he actually said the counseling room is actually a very noisy place if you take into consideration all the communication that's actually happening in the room. So that's further context is psychological. These are the moods and emotions that we bring into the situation. The moods and emotions that you bring into the situation. If you are upset, that's what you're bringing into the room. If you are happy, that's what you're bringing into the room. And I'm not talking only about the client, the counselor too. If the counselor is not in a good space, that's also going to cause the counseling process not to be in a good space. So that's all included in the way you talk. Channels, what are the sensory paths which transport messages, how do we transport our messages, talking, what's happening with us. Feedback, verbal and non-verbal. In our assignments at the moment, you get that feedback form, which you have to give to your client and they fill it out and whatever. So in the real life that also happens, but you don't do it after every single session. So you can do it after a few sessions, or hopefully after the last session. Just do random sessions. You don't have to do feedback every single time. You can have verbal feedback, like at the end of your session when you finish talking to your client, you'll say, so, and this is what my clinical supervisor does. She says to me normally, so tell me one thing that you're taking away from this session. So, she said one thing and why. So that so you have to be more specific. You can't just say, oh, everything was great. So you have to say, you know, when we talked about this is really good because I'm going to use this or I'm going to do that. So feedback is very important. For us as counselors, we need feedback. You need to know if what you're doing with your client is actually working. And rules of communication guide us in an understanding what kind of messages and behaviors are acceptable. Rules. Sometimes it is important to put down some rules, especially if you've got a client that keeps on swearing. So say, hey, I don't accept swearing. And also, you as a counselor, stay professional. You don't fall into the trap or start swearing. Stay professional. Okay? That's very important. There are certain rules that you need to set with clients. That's part of boundaries too. Rules is like, don't contact me. My rule is I am a face-to-face counselor. The other night I got a text message from someone. 10 o'clock at night I got this message. I don't know who it was. This guy texts me. I just got this text message, a name and a telephone number. Like 10 o'clock at night. Like, what's this? And the message comes back. I was told if I text this number, a counselor will phone me. So I say, who gave you this number? And he texts me a number of another person. I said, I don't know who this person is. So what do you want from me? I need to see a counselor. I need a counselor. I said, okay, fine. You want to make an appointment? This is the times I'm available. He says, no, I want you to phone me now. I said, sorry, phone Lifeline. I am a face-to-face counselor. I'm not, because he said to me, because there are stuff at night which I can't sleep over. So some issues that cause me not to sleep. I said, well, that's not really good. So I said, well, phone Lifeline. Good, if you want to talk to someone, I'm a face-to-face counselor, and anyway, my insurance doesn't cover me on telephone counseling. So if you want to see me, I've given you the opportunity, make an appointment. That's cool. But you wanted to talk now about the fact that you can't sleep. So you put your boundaries in there, and you don't cross your own boundaries. If the guy said, I want to commit suicide, awesome. I would have had a bit of a chat to him, found out where he was, and sent out the police. But he just wanted to talk about the fact that he can't sleep at night. So Lifeline can do that for you for free. So put down your rules, also with your clients. If you see me in Coles, we're not talking about this. Okay? It's like if you see me in Coles, you may say hi and walk away. Okay, I'm not your best friend. Don't invite me for coffee. Don't invite me to your child's birthday party. That's not my role. Communication barriers, the environment. The environment can be a huge barrier. If it's too hot, if it's too loud, if it's too dark, if it's too bright, if there's no ventilation, if we're sitting there, it's suffocating, if it smells bad. If you're in an environment, like if you sit on a couch and a rat died in the couch and you have this decomposing rat smell at the moment, it's like you just want to get out of there. You honestly don't want to sit and counsel there. So just the environment plays a big role. Physical barriers, like there's some physical barriers too, like disabilities too. Some people, I mean, if you are not equipped or not trained in being into some physical disability counseling, you might struggle. That might be a barrier for you. So cultural issues, we all talk when we did the culture unit, or when you do the culture unit, you talk more about this. There are heaps of issues with culture, and culture can be a problem. It can be a huge barrier. So you can just think of culture issues that are some of them. Women are not allowed to speak to men, and now suddenly you have this man coming in and the woman counselor and that sort of thing. There's lots of barriers. So language barriers and age issues. Age can be an issue. Some people struggle to work with old age people. So I've got an old kid who works in old age homes as a nurse. He loves it. But he can't work with children. That's not the area that he can work in. He doesn't know, he doesn't have the streetwise or the savvy or whatever it is, or the ability to work with kids, but he can work with old people. And then you get older people who struggle to work with older people. You can work with younger people. So age can be an issue. So just realize that it can be an issue and also deal with that issue. Like if you say I'm not good with people over 60, don't take on cases of people over 60. If you're not, I'm not counting kids, there's no way. I refer them on, but I'm not counselling them because that's not my field. So make sure you know what are your barriers to styles of absorbing information. Visual. So what you see plays a role in your communication process. There's certain counsellors, if the counsellor doesn't look very professional, she's not getting anything out of me. I'm sorry. If I go there and the counsellor doesn't look good, or the counsellor smells bad, there's no way I'm going to continue seeing you. Because it's visual. I have to sit with you. I once read a book. The book's name was The Enemy Called Average. Awesome book. Great sayings in it. My dean at that stage looked at the book. He walked past me and saw my book, and he said, "Wow, that's a great book." And he turned over this book, and the photo of the author is like this huge, obese man on the back. And he said to me, "I'm not going to read that book. That guy can't even look after himself as a person. How can you write a book and say, I must, a self-help book, and you can't help yourself?" So it's also of counselling. It's like we need to be presentable. We need to look the part. Okay, so be who you are. I'm not saying go and sit there in a suit, but just be presentable. It's just part of the role. Be professional. Auditory. We have to hear each other. Speak clearly. And that's why it's important also, make sure there's no noise. Or try and also another thing is, because we listen to stuff, also make sure that there's no annoying noises. Like if your computer fan is really screeching, make sure it's not on when you've got clients, because it can be just annoying. So just think about also the auditory senses. What do we hear when we sit in your room? I mean, that aircon sound makes me tired. If I keep on listening to that, I'll fall asleep. If you sit with a client and you have to sit there and listen to them for an hour, just make sure that you don't fall asleep during the process, because that's not good. That's not professional. So take those things into consideration. Ganesh, physical. Okay. That's basically what we also look like, act, what you see, what's happening in front of you. Some of your clients are physical type of people. Some of them are not good at just talking. That's why it's good to sometimes have toys. The figurines, the cards, the gold charts, all those things. Sometimes it's good to have those things, because some of your clients don't really react good with talking. That's why sound therapy, all those stuff is good. When I worked with the children, with the students at Beanley, on my counselling, I had like a little coffee table thing where they sat next to me, or I bought a bunch of couches at Salvo's, and I had a coffee table, and they'll come, and on my coffee table I had Play-Doh. And they just played with Play-Doh. I didn't say to them play with Play-Doh. I didn't say make something from Play-Doh. You don't tell a year 12 boy to play and make something of Play-Doh. But the first thing they do is when they come down, they take the Play-Doh and they just play with it. They might also throw each other with the Play-Doh, so that's another issue. But people like to feel stuff, be more physical with stuff too. So it also helps in your practice. Maybe if you can't really communicate with a client, get this sort of things. It helps. It helps to create a good environment. So that's the whole communication barrier thing. It's just, in short, what's happening is communication is the key to what we do. The way we speak, if you have a problem with, if there's areas that you're aware of that you struggle with, don't go around saying, "Oh, I can't do this." Do something about it. So if you know that you struggle with let's say, pronouncing words properly. Work at it. If you struggle to stay awake, make a plan. You know, it's like, make sure there's enough ventilation in the room. Make sure there's enough stuff that can actually keep you awake during a session. Some people do fall asleep during sessions, especially if you've got a really boring client. But that's a reality, and that's part of communication. That can become a barrier. So let's just focus on, in your own, you know what works for you. You know what sort of person you are. If you're somebody that talks with your hands, make sure that you do something with your hands. So, any questions? Communication is a key of our business. And that's also when communication, I also focus on what we don't say. Body language is important. And I don't recommend, or don't say go and buy every body language book that you can put your hands on. Some of them are really strange, really weird stuff. Like if the guy touches his nose while he talks to you, he's probably lying. If you say something and they touch their ear, they probably don't like what they heard. Some of them can be true, but sometimes his nose is just itching, or sometimes his ear is just, if you play with your wedding ring, you've got marriage issues. Maybe it's just a habit. Yeah, it's like, so don't generalize everything you see in these books, but communication is important. Especially the fact that try when you see a client, especially for the first time, try not to cross your legs, because that's sort of, especially if you put your leg like this, you're sort of creating a barrier between your client and you, which can be perceived as not friendly. So try and be more open, the way you sit, and don't cross your arms either. Don't get into the okay, tell me what's happening sort of thing, because that might just be seen as a threatening stance. So be more open with your clients, because our clients are more visual. Right? And don't be the scary person. We need to create a very friendly, loving, acceptable environment. So
that comes into most jobs too, and especially if you're going for a job, you've got to have those communication.
You need to have those communication stuff, yeah. So we need because that communication. Although we know all our techniques and all our theories and all our therapies, communication is our main tool, and we have to use it to the best that we can. Yeah.
How do we approach a client that is swearing a lot in the session?
You would probably ask them not to do that. You would just say that, can you just minimize the use of swear words? I'm not talking about one that swears once in a while.
No.
I'm talking about one who's every second word, or as we say, every third word is actually an English word. All the others are swear words. Those sort of clients, or clients that really use. It's like I'm offended if people use God's name, because that's my religion, and I would say to a person, can you please just respect my belief system, like I respect you, so I won't swear at you, please don't swear at me. So that sort of stuff. I once spoke to kids about it. They came into my room and they swore, and I said to them, don't swear, and they're like, oh, and I use a swear word. I didn't know that. So some people are just, that's the way they are. Okay, so that's cool. But normally just ask them,